Seoul, 1973. President Park Chung-hee sat in his Blue House office, staring at a folder marked Baekdusan Project. Confidential. He had built a nation from rubble in less than 2 decades, but he still felt Korea was one miscalculation away from annihilation. The Americans had thousands of troops stationed south of the DMZ, but Park never forgot the whispered warning of the 1950s: "We will not trade Los Angeles for Seoul." When Washington discovered his secret nuclear program, Henry Kissinger himself called to apply pressure. Park listened politely, and then ignored him. He had grown up under Japanese rule, survived the Korean War, and seized power in a coup. He would not allow South Korea's fate to depend forever on foreign soldiers. And so, unlike in our real history, the Baekdusan Project was never dismantled. It grew. Hidden in tunnels beneath Mount Sobeek, engineers worked feverishly on enrichment. French scientists, recruited through shell companies, taught centrifuge design. A Canadian reactor provided cover. By 1975, the Republic of Korea was 6 months away from the bomb. Chapter 1: The Test. On a frigid morning in January 1976, a group of South Korean generals gathered in a bunker deep beneath the Taebaek Mountains. At exactly 5:30, a thunderous roar shook the earth. Snow cascaded from the peaks. Instruments spiked. A 15-kiloton device had just exploded underground. Within hours, seismic monitors in Japan, China, and the Soviet Union picked up the unmistakable signature. The CIA confirmed South Korea had tested a nuclear weapon. The world gasped. Washington was furious. President Gerald Ford phoned Park. "Mr. President, you have jeopardized our alliance. This reckless act cannot stand." Park replied coldly. "With respect, Mr. President, you jeopardized it the moment you signed a peace with Hanoi and left Saigon to fall. Korea will not be the next pawn abandoned." Chapter 2: The Shockwaves. North Korea reacted first. Kim Il-sung called an emergency Politburo meeting. "The puppets of Seoul have betrayed Asia," he thundered. Secret cables flew to Moscow and Beijing begging for countermeasures. The North began mobilizing along the DMZ. China, still recovering from the Cultural Revolution, was caught off balance. Deng Xiaoping muttered privately that the Koreans had humiliated Beijing. If Korea could make a bomb, what about Taiwan? Japan? Japan was perhaps the most shaken. Memories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki surged. Conservative politicians whispered that Japan could not remain defenseless. A secret committee was convened in Tokyo to study Japan's own nuclear option. The Soviet Union laughed bitterly. "The Americans have lost control of their own clients," Brezhnev said. Yet Moscow secretly worried, a nuclear-armed South Korea could destabilize the whole Pacific theater. And in the streets of Seoul? Fireworks. People chanted, "Daehan Mingguk Mansi! Long live Korea!" For once, they felt like masters of their destiny. Chapter 3: The Axe Crisis Rewritten. In our real history, the 1976 Axe murder incident at Panmunjom nearly led to war when North Korean soldiers killed 2 U.S. officers trimming a tree in the Joint Security Area. But in this timeline, the incident escalated differently. After the murders, U.S. forces prepared Operation Paul Bunyan, a massive show of force. But this time, South Korean generals insisted on bringing their new nuclear deterrent into play. A squadron of F-4 Phantoms sat armed with nuclear gravity bombs on an airstrip near Ozan. Satellite photos leaked. Kim Il-sung, normally brash, blinked. The North pulled back its troops. For the first time, it was Pyongyang that feared annihilation. Speculation: historians later agreed this moment marked the true birth of South Korean independence. From that day, no North Korean provocation went unanswered without Seoul reminding the world, "We have the ultimate weapon." Chapter 4: Allies in Doubt. The United States now faced a nightmare. South Korea, a cornerstone of its Asian strategy, had defied it. Washington debated sanctions, but could not risk alienating a country sitting on the DMZ. Congress fumed. Senator William Proxmire declared, "This is Pandora's box. If Korea can get the bomb, who's next?" The answer came swiftly. Taiwan launched its own clandestine program, emboldened by Seoul. Japan accelerated plutonium stockpiling under civilian cover. By 1980, the Pacific was bristling with nuclear ambitions. The U.S. ROK alliance frayed. American troops remained in Korea, but now as guests, not protectors. Park reminded every ambassador, the age of American nuclear monopoly in Asia is over. Chapter 5, A Deadly Gamble. By the late 1970s, the situation grew perilous. North Korea, desperate not to fall behind, attempted to steal nuclear secrets. In 1978, South Korean counterintelligence uncovered a Pyongyang spy ring in Busan. At least 2 scientists were executed. That same year, Park Chung-hee was assassinated in our real timeline. But here, he survived the nightclub shooting, his would-be assassin's gun jammed. Park lived on, hardened, convinced that destiny had spared him to shepherd Korea into greatness. His dictatorship grew harsher, but the nuclear shield gave him leverage. Amnesty International condemned him, ordinary Koreans shrugged, whispering, "At least we are safe from the North." Speculation. By 1980, Seoul was known globally as the Jerusalem of Asia, holy and untouchable, surrounded by enemies, yet bristling with weapons no one dared challenge. Chapter 6, The 1980s, The Tiger Rises. While North Korea sank deeper into isolation, South Korea roared. The nuclear program, instead of crippling the economy, paradoxically attracted investment. Why? Because corporations knew Seoul could not be bullied. By 1985, Samsung and Hyundai operated globally. Korea was still authoritarian, but rich. The 1988 Seoul Olympics became a showcase not just of culture, but of power. Every athlete knew they competed in the first nuclear-armed, small state. The opening ceremony featured fireworks shaped like mushroom clouds, half joke, half warning. Speculation. Political scientists later wrote that the Asian tigers would never have risen in the same way without Seoul's audacity. Taiwan and Singapore, shielded under Korea's umbrella, grew bolder. Chapter 7, The Cold War Ends. Differently. In 1989, as the Berlin Wall crumbled, so too did North Korea's confidence. With the USSR collapsing, Pyongyang's support evaporated. China, more pragmatic under Deng, shifted toward trade with the South. Kim Il-sung died in 1994, just as in our history, but instead of a tense nuclear crisis, the North entered a slow, reluctant thaw. Some historians speculate that the existence of Seoul's bomb prevented famine by forcing Pyongyang into cautious reforms earlier. By 2000, North Korea remained authoritarian but weaker, overshadowed by a glittering Seoul skyline and a population unafraid of invasion. Speculation. Many wonder if this alternate Korea would ever have reunified. Some suggest the South had no desire. Why absorb poverty when you already sit on a nuclear throne? Chapter 8, Korea in the 21st Century. By the 2000s, South Korea was not just an economic miracle. It was a nuclear club member, alongside the US, Russia, China, Britain, France, India, and Pakistan. Unlike North Korea's later crude program, Seoul's arsenal was advanced, polished, and quietly massive. The US hated it, but could do nothing. Korean pop culture, K-dramas, K-pop, Korean tech, spread worldwide under the shadow of nuclear prestige. As one commentator quipped, "The same country that gave us kimchi also gave us the end of American monopoly in Asia." Epilogue, Korea, 2025, the nuclear nation. So what does Korea look like in 2025, in this world? Unified? No. The peninsula remains divided. But the South is so dominant that the North has effectively become a Chinese client buffer. Occasional reunification talks occur, but Seoul has little incentive. Economy? Larger than Japan's. Nuclear prestige accelerated global trust in Korean corporations. Samsung rivals Apple, Hyundai controls much of global EV production. Politics? Democratic since the 1990s, after Park's death. But still fiercely nationalist. Every president campaigns with the phrase, "Strong Korea, Safe Korea." Military? A mid-sized but nuclear-armed force. Submarines patrol the Pacific with ballistic missiles. Seoul is sometimes called the Tel Aviv of the East. Culture? Korean soft power remains strong. K-pop concerts often feature patriotic references to the nuclear legacy. A BTS concert in Los Angeles in 2023 projected holographic mushroom clouds alongside love songs, half ironic, half proud. Geopolitics? Japan finally developed its own weapons by 1999, ending pacifism. Taiwan also has a bomb, making Chinese invasion plans nearly impossible. The U.S. alliance network in Asia is weaker. Washington had to accept a multipolar Pacific. China respects but resents Korea, knowing that one strike could incinerate Beijing. Speculation: in this 2025, South Korea is not just a middle power. It is the keystone of Asia, the country that proved even a small, battered nation can seize nuclear destiny. And in the hills above the DMZ, tourists still gather at observation decks, peering north. Guards in sunglasses stand ready. Somewhere beneath those mountains lie silos, silent and hidden. The message has not changed since 1976. We will never be abandoned again.